And we've got audio. Perfect. I believe all is in place. Is it? Well, let's move it this way. Looks better this way. Let's Captain Marvel here. Very well. Let's begin. Shabbat Shalom, the most esteemed friends, honorable judges, LVE tribe, as well as everyone else accompanying us. On this precious, cloudy, they say won't last that long, but it's a precious climate today. Day of Shabbat from California, the US of A, today being the 3rd of Bull. We've entered into the 8th month. It's called Bull or Heshvan of the year 5194 from creation, corresponding to the 25th day of October of the year 2025. Month of October is on its way out already. We shall study yet another chapter of Wisdom and Discipline, part 38. Not in this series. In this series, we continued again after a bit of a year of an interval we had, where we had another series which was called The Spirit of the Feast. There, I taught you a prayer that you can start to practice every day, because we've already changed our way of directing ourselves to Yahweh with the intentions we had before and the petitions we had before, a more elevated prayer now. And the one I've taught you, it's the following. It's not found in this series. It's a prayer that helps you, actually helps you. If you repeat it, you can add more words. This is just an example. It is the Our Father, but with a superior understanding. I have the power, I have the control. Sanctified be my name. My kingdom come, my will be done. May all my dreams become true. My daily needs, I obtain them. I forgive all my faults, as I also forgive the faults of the rest. I do not get into temptation. I free myself of temptation, for mine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Semper Fi. You can end it however you want. But it would no longer be an Our Father directed towards a God, but rather directed towards us, to have us be empowered. What those who do not understand why about this so radical a change, they would have to watch the whole series, and I do recommend it, the whole entire series of the Spirit of the Feasts. It is when we stop directing ourselves towards God for our own needs, and we start to direct ourselves towards us to empower ourselves. Very well. I'd like to congratulate those who have had a birthday during this week, which are as follows: Wilmer Usuga, Colombia; Rogerio David, Brazil; Elizabeth Sanchez Hernandez, Mexico; Jacobo Dolores Melquiades, Mexico; Maria Olivia Arcia Juarez, Nicaragua; Dana Luciana Hernandez, Mexico; Fernando Virriel, Uruguay; José Rafael Valenzuela Ramos, Mexico; Norberto Cardillo Devia, Venezuela; Juan Huancas Roman, Peru; Jenny Escobar Vergara, Colombia; Jairo Benjaí Lombardi Ramos, Peru; José Alexander Pizón Padilla, Colombia; Sara Edisa, Panama; and Oscar Leandro Serrano, Argentina. To each and every one of you, a great big hug on behalf of all of us, on behalf of LVE, many blessings, and our wish is that they may be either your last or one of your last birthdays under this dictatorship of Babylon. They just let me know that we've got a new member in the Eternal Truth, because Anuncio, and I congratulate their mom and dad, because Darlene Argentina Usuga Tejada has been born. And I'll read the message as is that they sent us. A new member of LB has been born on September 18th at 10:51. And she has the name of Darling Argentina Usuga Tejada, which means beautiful Argentina. More than anything, darling means beloved Argentina. That is what darling means in English, beloved, cared for, but that's fine if you want to give it the meaning of beautiful, which goes well with everything that I've said. Her mom, Yosleida Tejeda, and their mom, Wilmer Usuga, which I've just congratulated for their birthday. They let us know they didn't let this news be known before because it was premature, but now she is back at home with all her lineage. So then welcome, darling Argentina, to be a part of this nation of the eternal truth. Many happiness to both of you, Wilmer and Yosleida, and may you actually feel accompanied with all of us, all of our congratulations. So then, a great big hug for you, a great blessing. Very well. So then we've got a new member in the eternal truth. And what a special name, Darling Argentina. Spectacular. Spectacular. Very well. Changing our subject radically, a disaster. The first with the name of Argentina, born in LVE, right? What a disaster. The game of Boca the other day, you've seen it. Even if, from my point of view, we played well, since we don't have a frontliner that don't know how to score. If it's Merentiel, Jimenez, one is worse than the next. They either take it right into the hands of the goalie, or they just fly over the posts. Either way, when you don't score it, another one comes along and they score it. That's what happens. It was so bitter last Shabbat. I was so angry, but that's the way it is. But today, this weekend, there's no soccer in Argentina because there's going to be voting of all the Congress and all the rest, which I don't care at all. What is important is that on Monday, we play the pending game that I had announced that Shabbat, that we were going to play against Barracas Central, which has the name of the Chiquitapia, the name of the Argentinian soccer president's name, and we're going to battle against the team of the president of the Argentinian soccer. So then all the arbiters are in favor of them, evidently. Just imagine an arbiter after a game for the president to come, Chiquitapia, and tell him, hey, beloved, why did you have that penalty? That didn't look like a penalty. Imagine the situations. And then all the arbiters, of course, they're gonna make a difference for their boss. That's normal. That's when there's an interest. That's the problem. The Argentinian soccer team should not have a part in the club, evidently. It shouldn't, but that's how things are. To win against Barracas Central, it's a team that's give or take. We have to score 4 goals, and maybe they'll charge 2. We have to play extremely well and beat the team and the arbiter. So then that's how we can win. We have to. Boca needs to win. We're going to play this Monday. So then this Monday, I believe that it's at 12 noon, California. You adjust your hours, give or take the time that I'm starting now on Monday. Boca plays and we visit the field of Barracas Central. It's a game that had been suspended due to the passing of Miguel Angel Russo, but now we play this Monday. River has been out of the Argentinian Cup. Independiente Mendoza, spectacular game. It was 0-0, and they went to penalty shots, and who scored and eliminating them? The frontliner, the forward forward, which Boca took out Sebastián Villa because of everything that happened that I've told you about already. And for me, it's one of the best players in the Argentinian soccer. He scored the last goal, and he sent them literally to hell. River is in hell, so wow. We have to play against River, I believe, in the first week of November. In just a little bit, we'll play against River in our field. And that game is a final, because the one who gains that game pretty much is the one that goes to Libertadores, and the one stays out. So then if we beat them, we don't just beat them, but we almost take their shot away of going to Libertadores. Not that we're going to be a champion in our league right now. And if they beat us, they take away that opportunity. It'll be a game to the death. There's lots of tension in the air. Precisely against the chickens, these Masons we have to play. Either way, it'll be what it'll be. Those are the news about Boca. I'd like to remind you, we've got a free service. This is Angelina's Consults. If you're going through some sort of situation and you want to know the root thereof or try to understand it, try to surpass it, you can get in touch with Angelina. Her Facebook is in the description of this video. Farewell. Shemah Israel, Eloheinu, YHWH Ekhad. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh, our Elohim, Yahweh is one alone. It's all based on this central truth. In order to understand the truth, there's not two, there's not three. Yahweh doesn't have a son, the Creator doesn't have a son, a divine son. He has a son, but it's something else, which is Israel was at first, but actually just a figure, because the one that he calls a son in Scripture is the Messiah. That is why he becomes the son. So then it's not a divine son that was born in heaven that comes to save us. No, none of that. Absolutely none of that. In order to understand truth, we have to first understand what the Shema is. Very well. Proverbs 25:2. It is the glory of Elohim to conceal the word. The word is concealed entirely. The Bible is concealed. It's in code. It's closed. Yet the glory of the king is to search out the word. The king represents, in this case, the Messiah, the kings that will rule this earth. The rest does not draw the true profit of what the Bible has to teach. For that reason, since they don't understand the Bible, the whole world will say, at some point in time, which Jeremiah 16:19 says, which says, only lies was the inheritance of our fathers, vanity to which there's no veil. If it is man that makes himself gods, then they are not gods. Only lies was the inheritance, and the lies come from different flavors. Christian lies, Jewish lies, Muslim lies, and all the rest. Different types of lies within every one of those groups, but it's all a lie. Everything that they believed as God is not everything that they have waited for that God would do. God will not do the salvation they waited that God to do. It won't come through the means that they believed or hoped for. So then the whole world will have to recognize that it was all a lie. And they will recognize it, that it's a lie. Because the only one that has the truth are those kings which can understand the Scripture. Very well. Wisdom and Discipline, part 38. I'll start by answering questions, because the subject about Solomon and everything we've studied during the last 2 or 3 chapters, I've ended it already. I hope you have seen it many times over. It's a very deep subject. We studied it last Shabbat. It's an open subject. It's a subject which gives us a general idea of what the kingdom that's about to begin on this earth will be when the time comes. So then I invite everyone that would like to ask questions. You can ask questions of what we've been studying, about whatever. It'd be good that they're related with the subject, but they don't have to. You can ask, but the questions that I will answer, you have to write them to my Facebook. Not on my timeline, but rather as a DM. Send your questions there, and I'll answer every one of them as anonymously. So then everyone, I invite you, if you want to ask a question, you can ask whatever. The invitational text with this beautiful picture that Leslie has placed and posted of that sun going back behind the mountains, it is a scene from our backyard. It is Proverbs 2, New Living Translation. The purpose of the Proverbs is to teach wisdom and discipline and to help people to understand the intelligence of the wise. That is why we're studying Proverbs, in order to understand and to amplify our wisdom and to understand the intelligence of the wise. Very well. Before advancing in the Proverbs study, I'm going to begin with some questions. I have a whole bunch of them, but I'll answer the first ones. These were actually some of the last ones that I've answered, but in order to begin, I'll answer them quickly. For example, the last questions they asked me were, and I want to present the subject because I love this subject, but I'm going to present it only the last part thereof, summed up, because I'm going to talk about predestination, but very shortly. I've dedicated 3 subjects to predestination, which are found in this same series in the previous chapters. It's just that it's been more than a year ago. But watch them because we've got the biblical texts there and everything that I wanted to develop in 3 chapters. Here I will only sum up for all those who have forgotten a bit, and for the new ones also, and to incentivize those who have not listened to the subjects of predestination to go back in the series and to listen to them. The question had been as follows. Hello, Christian. I have questions about subjects that I need to understand and to judge my life and that of others. 1. Predestination. Does it really exist? Would it be just? How is it possible and how is it applied, since I've heard you mention it? Well, the subject about predestination. I'll continue with the second question here. The subject about predestination is very common, that it is touched on the churches sometimes. Generally, the church, Judaism does not believe in predestination. They do not believe in predestination. They believe that every human being is born free to obey God or disobey Him. It's a semi-predestination also, because they cannot explain why some are born within Judaism, in other words, within the sacred race, guided by God and not others. So then, in one way or another, they believe in it. In one way of seeing it, they believe and they don't believe, because they say that all the Jews, which are actually the Israelites, because Jews is something else, because all that have been born in Israel, which are born there up until today, have a soul with a divine touch. They call it a divine soul. And all who are born outside of Israel, which are the peoples, the nations, the goyim, as they call it, they don't have a divine soul. Actually, they have a demoniacal soul. They say it very clearly in many different books that they have in the Talmud. It's not so directly explained like that, but it is there. Not so explicit, but afterwards, Rebbe Schneerson wrote some books where he said that directly the Jews have a divine soul and the Goyim have a demon soul. That's why the Jews don't have, since they are trained in that, they don't have too much feeling about the Goyim peoples dying. In other words, the Jews that are not so religious do. But the Jews, the more religious they are, they care less. The less they care about the Goyim, because they said it's like animals. Like little animals, little creatures, little critters that don't have the particle, cats and dogs here. They don't have the divine particle that precisely makes them different. The Jews, have heard them say, rabbis, that the worst of the Jews, the worst of them all, the wickedest of them all, the most bloodthirsty murderer Jew of them all is better is better, the worst of them all, is better than the best of the Goyim. The worst of the Jews is better than the best of all the Goyim, because you get the difference in their soul. Well, there's a bit of predestination in their belief there, because of course, who chooses who's born a Jew and who's born a Goyim? Then the rest, taking that out, they believe that predestination does not exist, but that actually everyone decides their own future. Well, the Christians are divided because the Christianity took off with a clear predestination of what Paul taught. More than anything, there is a predestination, but he also taught that whomever could be saved. So then Christianity began without defining it very well, but there came a point in which, when Christianity became the Catholic Church, which is the way it started, they never believed in predestination. The Catholic Church preaches that predestination does not exist, that every person has the opportunity of being saved or to be lost eternally. Everyone will decide what will happen with their life. There's no people that have been born to be evil and people that have been born to be saved. No, everyone decides that. When the Reform came within the Catholic Church, which was called Protestantism, many different sources divided in this. So then a person came out, which was called Luther, and Luther left with the same belief the Catholic Church, saying that predestination does not exist. But one arose, Calvin, and Calvin said, no, you're all wrong. Predestination does exist, and it is absolutely determined by God before you're born. When you're born, God already knows that no matter what you do, you are destined to eternal life or destined to death or to eternal hell, no matter what you do. That the calling of God is sovereign upon all things, and you can't do anything about it. And one could ask oneself, why do you preach then? It's just to awaken those who are predestined, which one way or another you have to awaken them. And those who are not predestined, they can listen, they can follow, but at some point in time they'll leave. And it would be no good to continue on either way, because they're not predestined either way. So then they teach that those who do listen and they're part of their churches, they are predestined. When they leave their church and they renounce everything, they were not predestined. So then Calvinism became many different branches of Christianity, very important, especially here in the U.S. Calvinism is very strong in other places of the world, as in all of South America or Latin America. In the rest of the world, Christianity is not Calvinism. They're not about predestination. I was born in Adventism, which they don't believe in predestination, absolutely. But you've always got the text. So then I've given you there what the Christian world believes. But what is predestination? I have passed on from a person that believed in free will completely, no one predestined at all. I was able to understand a predestination to the level that is of Calvinism, which is what... Hold on, let me separate the table here, because every time I move the table, I move the flower. So I'm not going to move it there anymore. The table would touch there, and the flowers. These are called a little squash tree, pumpkin trees, a pumpkin tree. They're not really pumpkins. They look like pumpkins or squashes, however you want to call them. But they're more of the eggplants and tomatoes. They're not edible because they don't taste well. Not that they're poisonous, but they're just for the Halloween feast. And since we're in Halloween, and some might say, oh, what a satanic feast. I mean, the Robledo family brought this, and they're spectacular, and they're, well, you can't really see them in the image there. Brian, can you please move it just a little bit this way here, from here to there? Let's see. So that it comes in a bit. There you go, right there. There. You can see it in the screen very well. They're so beautiful. They look like little squashes, little pumpkins, just like that of Cinderella, that the witch made it into a carriage. They look like those kind of squashes. They're huge. Like those of Halloween, they're precious. They're not painted. That is their natural color. Spectacular. They're tiny, precious. I had never seen it, to tell the truth. I had never seen them. We had to look them up to see what were they. Were they pepper or something? And it turned out to be what I've told you. It's from tomatoes and eggplants, but is used as an adornment. So then they're spectacular. So then, what was saying about this? I forgot. What was I saying about this? Well, I come from the non-predestination line to a very clear and very Calvinist type of predestination, and that's when we used to believe in the Torah and all the rest. And a year ago, I presented what actually now, with all the wisdom that we have acquired throughout the years, having understood what this world is for, what this creation is, and having understood all the subjects that the people all will be saved, this will be an experience to determine your eternal life. Everyone that is born on this stage is creation, and it's an experience. They will all be saved. So then, having understood that, predestination, I represented it more than a year ago as if it were a theatrical act. And I'll do it exactly like I did at the end of the predestination subject. The theater is the entire world. And it is. It's a theater. Sometimes they do such works that people believe, and we say, but I mean, this is not real, it's surreal. Everyone that is born enters the theater. Welcome to the world. We are all born in this theater. There is a creator of the work, only one creator. It's also the writer, director, and everything. And he wrote it, adapted it, and he directs it. He's also the one that does the casting. He chooses what role in this theatrical work is going to play in every person that enters. It is the casting. The one that gives to everyone the role that they will represent. Of course, what are the different roles? You've got main actors, secondary actors, fill-ins, extras, and a whole bunch of things in between. Those are the roles of casting of the people which live and have lived in this world. As any theatrical act, and people that tell the story, there are presenters that tell you the scenes, there are critics and commentators. The rest is the public, the audience that watch and draw their own conclusions. It's like anything that happens in this life. If it's something that calls everyone's attention, it could be that they bring down towers, could be an assassination, could be war, or when we got to the moon in 1969, which we never got there. You already know that. But it's the work that they present to you. That's what God does. He presents it to you. People criticize it, that don't believe it, that say it's garbage, and other people that believe it completely. It's all the same. They present medicine, history, God, the churches. It's all a theatrical work. It's all a theatrical work. And every human being has to draw their own conclusions. I believe, and it is my belief, that it is impossible for Elohim to move in time, past and future. He can't be, I'm going to go to the past, go to the future. No. Time is common for us and for God. I know that our mind is open more because now in the movies they say all kinds of movies that there's different realities and they can advance in time, go back in time, like Back to the Future. Well, I believe that that is part of science fiction. I resist to believe, absolutely, because my logic does not allow it, that the time that we're living here today, that you're listening to me to, which is now this moment, there could be a being that can destroy this present time and can advance to the future 100 years. Because in the future 100 years, it's also present for him, and he can directly advance there, and we all dead already, for example, and he advances in present there. But whenever he wants to come back here, I'll come back 1,000 years in history and annul us completely and move just like this car would do, the DeLorean. They would get into the DeLorean, and if they, I think it was 80 miles per hour or something like that, I can't remember exactly in the first one, then they made it more technological because it would fly. This is version number 3, it would fly. It was nuclear, the car was. At a certain speed, you could go to whatever place of a timeline, which was all relative. If I was living here in the present, I could go to the past. But if I were to alter something in the past, the present that as we knew it would be destroyed, of course. If my dad, in the present here, if my dad is a person, that person, and I go back in the past, and I cause for my mom to marry another guy, then I cannot be born because my dad, who was supposedly my dad, if I go back to the past, then all of the present does not exist except for me. That I was able to travel with the DeLorean to the past, and if I cause for the result of my present to be changed in the past, then there won't be a present of mine for me to exist or other people to exist, because I'll alter it. And by altering it, the whole result will be different to what that I lived from when I went to the past. So then that paradigm causes for it to be impossible to alter the time. So then neither for us nor for God. No. I don't believe it. I don't believe it, and it cannot exist. So then, God cannot move in time. He cannot move in time. So then everything that he prophesizes, it's not that he's seen it. It's not that he can go 100 years later or go back and forth and see what happened and makes a prophet write a prophecy. No, it is because he will cause it that way. It's as a theatrical work, exactly. He will cause the times and the situations and the acts, and he can prophesy them because he has them written down that he will do so. So then he is in charge of causing them to do. It's not that he saw that they would happen, but he causes them to happen. It is the way in which he prophesizes. As we can prophesy also, if we had, with our limited power, we could prophesy. Sometimes we can't fulfill them because we're God, but if God that directs everything has power, he will cause whatever he wants to do to be done, and he can determine it from the very beginning. It's determined from the very beginning, and that is the prophecy. So then, he plans and he creates reality, and that is how he fulfills the prophecies. In order to achieve this, he improvises a lot, is what I believe, on his behalf. Interaction and creation of the last minute creation, so that everything follows the course that it should. Because if there's something unstable that is unpredictable, it is us, human beings. So then God, the Creator, needs to interact on a permanent basis with us. The beast would not exist if he would not uphold it. The Bible says so, that the dragon, which is him, gave him power, gave him authority, gave him his seat, of course, and not just that, guides it on a permanent basis, or else it would not exist. It would no longer exist. Just like that, it would no longer exist. So then the interaction of God with us is daily. Everything you see in the world is creation of his. Even the lies of having gone to the moon, the lies that the earth is a globe, don't think that humans have invented that to dominate you or dominate me and to be filled with money. Those are consequences. But those who invented all that lie is God. It's God. God invented it. He's the genius of it all. There is no other explanation whatsoever. Humans would not come up with a subject or a system that in which they kill you and it's all the service of the white robe, and it's also good at the same time because it's necessary, because that's how we are in the wickedness of human beings. No. It is so an interaction of his. When he says that pharmakeia, through pharmakeia, would be deceived all the nations, it was not because he pre-saw that humans would be of the pharmakeia the greatest power of dominion. No. He didn't see it. He designed it. So then all the things that we see, all the lies that we live in humanity, are ideas of the author, which he wrote and had them be taken into account. That's why it's so important that you understand how God creates and does things. This is absolute predestination. Pharmakeia was predestined for it to exist. Science was predestined for it to exist. All of the deceit that we live was predestined to exist way before we were to exist. He said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this and that and this. And he takes it into account. He utilizes the best ingredients that he has, or causes them to be, with the characteristics that he needs, and he executes it. It's not that because of our wickedness took us to this ruin. No. He takes us to the ruin. The main actors are all who have formed peoples, nations, religions, movements, etc. They influence the masses in all times. For example, Adam, Eve, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, David, Solomon, prophets of Israel, the very Yahweh, which made himself be called Yeshua, the apostles, Paul, also the founders of other religions or of all the religions, like Muhammad. Don't think that some guy came up on his own to come up with a religion that is so complex and that would have so much success like Islam, and it was the brilliant idea of Muhammad. No, I can assure you that Muhammad received all the visions he said he received, that there was an angel that presented everything to him so he would write. It all happened as such, just as they tell you, because God needed the Muslim religion. He needed it. So then he created that religion with miracles, apparitions, with whatever he saw fit, necessary. That's why the miracles and all the rest, things that appear, they're true. They're true. Because the Creator causes those things to appear. Because He created. The Muslims were created by Him, directly created by Him. There's no other, just like Christianity, Judaism, like everything else. So then all of the religions, all of the leaders that have had power, the main figure and definitive figure of this theatrical work, the main actor, comes at that last moment that he is the figure of the Messiah. That's why all the religions, in one way or another, with one name or another, they call the Messiah. They desire the Messiah. They await the Messiah. Because with different expectations and different apparitions or ways and all the rest, all of the religions wait for some type of Messiah. The Messiah would be the main figure of this work. It would not appear until the end of times. It is part of the work of art. The whole Bible talks about one whole work of art. Supporting actors are all those that have had powers over the masses, kings, presidents, rulers, governors, false prophets, etc. The secondary filling and extras are all those mentioned in history, the Bible, and other books. The critics, commentators, and presentators are the historians, the pastors, the religious leaders, the atheists, the philosophers, etc. The rest are all the rest, which look at different scenes, whatever their timeline gives them, and they follow whatever they like, or the only thing they were able to see. There are people that were born in a religion, died in that religion, never didn't even know that another religion existed. Just imagine the previous nations that never had a contact even with other civilizations, the Indians, so many races of all types that didn't have any chance of even knowing a variant. No, they knew what they knew, they lived and died, their reality, that was their work of art. That's the way it is. Every actor, greater or lesser, was placed in the scene by the director and author. Of course, I absolutely believe in predestination, and the summation is this. These are the points of summation. So then in this work of art, in which we are born, it is pre-designed, predetermined, written, and directed by the Creator. The Creator says that He would work 6 days. We have the creation like it is. In the creation, He says that He created the light, He created this, He created the earth, that there was a separation. And He created different things, the sun, the moon, the stars, the vegetable world, the animal world. But He would create them. He would. There was no one else. He would. When you switch that and understand to what happened in that summation of the 6 days of creation, you have to understand that the creation of the beasts and the director and everything that causes, that makes the beast, He creates them. There's nothing here that is random, by chance. He created it determinately in every period of the history. So it's not our wickedness that achieved to get a beast. No, it's by design. The beast had to appear because He created it from the very beginning out of nothing. He said, let there be living beings, let there be beasts, and this and that. So then He created everything. This way of seeing things is unique on behalf of the eternal truth, because you're going to find different versions of predestination, but always that we've done everything evil, and it isn't so. Absolutely, it is completely veiled from the eyes of the others. This whole theatrical work, He still creates up until today. Don't think that the conflict that we have between Israel and Palestine was created by, like a mind by Netanyahu. They're just puppets, mere puppets, because if it weren't Netanyahu, it would be someone else. But he served for the case, and so then Elohim utilizes him or designed him to do something. Don't think that it is us, our works that do that. No, 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 absolutely not. Elohim does it. Elohim is doing it. With that, I do not justify his action whatsoever. But just imagine, in different scenes that you could clearly see, Judas would not hand over Jesus or the Messiah, who was Yahweh, until the devil entered him and he went and gave him up. He makes all things work. It goes way past the will of a human being. Another case, very clear. Pharaoh, he was going to let the people go. In fact, he decided to let them go. But there was an external power, it was not his wickedness, which would enter him and would make him do things that he didn't want to do. So then it's no longer any good, nor is it taken into account the will of the people. Pharaoh let the people go. But God came along and He hardened his heart. And so then He said, how is the people going to leave? We're going to persecute them. That whole idea of persecuting and killing them, God placed it in His mind. But I go way past that. Who placed some Pharaoh before him to enslave the Jews? God did. What Pharaoh all of a sudden rose up and said, oh, these Jews, how in all of the zone, the area of Goshen, they are making progress and they have children. It wasn't. If you think that it was an evil Pharaoh, a son of a bitch that didn't have anything else to do that other than envy, and that he said, "I'm going to exterminate the Jews and the Hebrews." No, you are wrong. You have not understood this creation. This creation, everything we have ever lived, the bad stages and evil ones were specifically designed by Yahweh before they would even take place. It's not because he's seen them, but he designed them. There's no such thing as an evil human that has done terrible things. If it weren't because God designed it that way, no Hitler would have ever existed, or Lenin, or Stalin, or any one of those characters so hated by the world. But if it wasn't because before they even existed, or before the world even existed, Yahweh said, in this year I'm going to raise this person, I'm going to make them do this, I'm going to make them be an assassin hated by the whole world. So then once you understand that, so then you're going to start to comprehend what this creation is. This creation is not a group of human beings that do whatever. Some stronger than others, some more evil than others. No. We have different roles. The one who played the role of the evil one is because Yahweh contracted him, per se, to play the role of the evil one. The one of the millionaire, Yahweh placed him to play the role of the millionaire. That of the poor, he had no other option than to be poor. And you can say, no, but I know many poor people that have come out of poverty. They were designed also to come out of poverty and to become rich. If you don't understand that point, then you cannot comprehend not even why we exist here for. There's nothing random. And when I say random, I have the word in English. There's nothing random in what has happened in this world. Nothing. Nor when we discovered electronics, nor when we discovered the translator, or when we started to use electricity, nor when we started to have the mind in productivity, because it cannot be, no one can explain why we live. I biblically tell you, why do we live 5,800 years cultivating the earth very, very unorganizedly, with rudimentary tools and all the rest, without an idea of real production, and all of a sudden the productive revolution is born. What about the productive revolution is owed to? They said, no, because of many things, we have been grown mentally. No. That about growing mentally was Yahweh. That about the stage in which we live now, it is very different than which we lived in 200 years ago. It is all absolutely divine design, that we can fly and not move by horse, because 300 years ago no one could even imagine that they could fly, nor what a car is. It was by horse or walking. That's it, it's over. Camels too. It was only 300 years ago. Why did the human beings didn't notice this 3,000 years ago? Because Yahweh did not allow them to have this technology that we have now. And if we have it now, because Yahweh allowed us to have this technology, not just allowed, but He designed it. Simple as that. He designed it. In His design, He placed the stages of this world and everything that we call progress. That progress is design of God. If you don't understand that, then you cannot understand what the truth is. You just cannot. Nor could you explain anything else. So then, having understood that, now I'll read to you what the summation of predestination is. Point number 1, it's 10 points. All human beings will be saved and will live for all eternity. This is point number one. God didn't make human beings so that they'd be lost, or so that they live a little time or lots of time and never again to exist. No. So then, it is a predestination of living this experience here, whether it's short or long or lots of evil, give or take, or good. It is just an experience. But they are all predestined for salvation. That is why they were created. Point number two. Point number one includes those who are evil, good, give or take, all of them. Point number two, the human race cannot choose salvation or perdition. It is not in us to choose. I choose salvation. I choose to be lost. I choose to believe. I choose not to believe. For salvation, I'm saying. So then it does not depend in it. The human race cannot choose. When I say human race, it's everyone. Between salvation or perdition. But they can choose in a limited way the way or path to salvation. Some, what am I referring to? The more evil they have to do, they will have to correct many things. In other words, we have limited selection, limited choice. But we cannot choose between being saved and being lost. No. We are all in the same, which is salvation. Point number three. Yahweh, in the form of a human being, which he made himself be called Yeshua, died for him. He didn't die for you. He died for himself. There was no need for him to die for you, because this is a creation. There was no need. He died for himself because there are many things he wanted to experience with death. He wanted to already a forgiveness that was assured, saying, already once they know all these things, I want you to understand something. That's why I died. I lived an experience like unto yours, limited, but I also had to die. So then it's not that what you experienced, I didn't experience. That is one of the reasons. Another reason being is that he made a law, but that's in a minor importance. That law, which that law would not allow for us to be saved, and by him dying, he destroyed that law. But that's not the most important point, because it even makes noise what I've just said. Because before the law existed, either way, even before the law existed, we were doomed to die. That's it, it's over. Aside from that, he didn't need to destroy that law. He could just annul it, and that's it. More than anything, he wanted to have an experience of what a human being is, and to have guarantee of a pardoning. Because when someone will want to blame him for everything that they didn't like his design, says, look, I lived a very similar experience like unto yours. He wanted to live that experience. So then let's not even see it as if he had to die. No. He died because he wanted to. It was part of his creation. Did he need to do that? No, of course not. He's God, the creator. He doesn't need, don't ever see it as if he needs to die. He needed, no. Or that without blood there is no remission of sins. I mean, those are the religious ideas that he placed upon us, so that we would have that false notion of things until little by little we come out of this box. Of course, there's no blood needed for remission of sins, but having invented that in the Bible, now we think, oh, without blood, without sacrifice, there's no pardoning. But you have to learn to forgive without killing. It's all incoherences, absolutely. It's all, this whole bunch of lies is a design by him. Did he need to die? No, he didn't need to die. He didn't need to die. He died for himself, his own experience. 4. Point number 4. Point number 4. How difficult. Oh yeah, point number 4. The sovereignty, and I speak about sovereignty. What is sovereignty? It is that he decides absolutely. Sovereign. The sovereignty of Yahweh in the predestination of the roles. We do not choose the roles. In fact, when we're born, we already have a role imposed upon us. We're born with a role. Even the parents, in a lesser scale, they impose a role when we're born. That is what we call in biodecoding the project of sense, but it goes way past that. The role that every human being will develop upon the earth has already been written by Yahweh. David, I don't think that David has been so intelligent. Yahweh made him write that so that he could communicate it to us. He placed, for his whole life had already been written in a book, that he knew him before he was born, and he knew exactly what would take place every one of his lives and how many days he would live. It's exactly that. It's exactly what I tell you. And he gave us that as an example. Our life, although it may seem that it's our decision, it is predetermined by a sovereign. That sovereign is God, who made you be born in certain cultures, in certain homes, with certain parents, with a determined language, in a time, in this 6,000 years, that is determined. So then here there is no spontaneousness. I personally do not believe that every human being that exists can make life with another person, a man and woman, for example, and by making life, we are sovereign in that child that is born is a product of ours. I don't believe that. I believe that the only thing that we can ever do is to provide a body, but the spirit, which will be the mind of that person, let's call it spirit, is placed by Yahweh. So then we may provide the body, but the spirit thereof is not provided by us. Because the spirit, who gives it to the father or the mother? Who gives the spirit to the new being, the father or the mother? One says, no, there's both characteristics. That is part of the hardware, of the structure. But the soul of the person, who places it there? Where is it? Is it in what chromosome? I believe, based on everything that I've experienced in this world, that God created in Genesis chapter 2, when he finishes Genesis chapter 2, he says a phrase that it always called my attention, and I understood it in a way that no one understands it that way. Genesis chapter number 2, text number 1 says, then the heavens and the earth were finished, and all of their hosts. It's talking about the sixth day, at the end of the sixth day. Pay attention. Then were finished, done, the heavens and the earth, and all of their host. And on the seventh day, God has finished this work of creation, so he rested from all his work. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made. Once we understand clearly that creation of 6 days is actually a prophecy that it's 6,000 years, you can read this text in this way. Then were the heavens and the earth finished, and all the people of them that would be born. And God ended his work on the day, or rather on the millennium number 7, or on 7,000th day, that you can read it, because 7,000 is the last day of the 6th millennium. The work, what he did, and he rested on the 7th day. The whole 7th day is the 7th millennium, the Shabbat. So then, if God says they were finished, the heavens and the earth, and all of their host, and all of their host, it means every human being that would ever be born. So then, if you understand it in the way in which I understand it, I give you the form in which I understand it. It's not so important for you to understand. I give you my wisdom. But what I found clearly in the scriptures, we do not create the souls. He created them at the beginning of everything. At the beginning of everything, He already created the souls. We cannot create them ourselves. We create a body. And if He doesn't place the soul, then it's dead. It's dead. Just like that, dead. And I believe that He places the soul once they are born. If the organism is born. Once the organism is born. And I don't even know what time that it's already been born. I don't even know if it's placed when they're pretty much older or of more than a month, 2 months, 3 months, at some point in time. But let's forget, in my way of thinking, God places the soul in the creature once they're born, at some point in time, once they're born. Don't just believe this. The Jews also understand that. That's why the Jews accept clearly abortion. Because abortion, they see it, the way I see it, as that it is the body, as it is just the body, that the soul will be placed there later, and that the soul can be placed by God, not by us, by God. We are capable of creating the body, but the soul is placed by Him because He created it already. He created it already. So then, if you understand what I tell you, you will comprehend why I said the other day that during the 7th millennium no one will be born. Because the number has already been completed. The number of, how he says, the host. He calls it the host thereof. It's been completed entirely. It's not that I believe that the human beings indeterminately, because if they have had a little more, we'd be more, but since we have so much of a quantity, let's suppose, when the King's Head comes, let's suppose that there was, just a number, whatever, 12 billion people. 12 billion, this, and that, and that, and that, and that. Let's give that number. But that it could have been 13 billion if they had more kids. That it depend upon us how many we would be. And I don't believe that. Or else I would stop believing in a creator. I would stop believing in a creator. I don't believe that God has placed anything just by chance. It's not the type of person that does anything by chance. When I have chickens, let's see how many we have from here on out. No. There's a specific number of human beings, and the time will not end until that number of human beings is completed. That is why time cannot be sped up. That is pure predestination. If He says there will be, just an example, if He says there will be 10 billion people, it's going to be 10 billion, not one more. If the human beings were to produce more, it'd be dead bodies aborted, because God does not come to the soul. Because the soul is as if it were in a box, and when He's being born, He takes out, I'll place this guy here, I'll place this guy there, and those souls have names already, or a number, I don't know. And when those people die, that soul, here's the secret of resurrection, the secret of the meaning of our life, or else our life has no meaning. We're just by random. I want you to understand, because maybe you need to understand because you've never thought about it so clearly. If I'm not right in my words, then you and I are a random product. That when my dad had sex with my mom, one of the sperms that was stronger than the other, and because it was that day, because maybe they had sex a day prior, or because he masturbated, and a whole bunch were lost right there, and any one of the billions that there were, that's the one I was. And the egg of my mom was precisely that one. Because if it had been a month afterwards, it would have been a different egg. So then you have to get all those variables that are billions of billions. So then I'm the variable of something which came by random, by chance, just by ass. So then if you believe that, you stop believing in a creator immediately. I don't think even what sperm or what egg or anything, what was important about me was the soul which I was to receive. Because the egg and the sperm would give me certain characteristics to me. That's fine. God can interact there. But my main characteristics are my mind, something which medicine or science cannot understand what it is. Which they say that it weighs 20 grams, and when a person is alive and they're about to die, in the moment in which they exhale, when they die, they lost 20 grams, which they don't know where it comes from. Many experiments of that have been made. They weigh the person that's about to die, and when they die, they lose 20 grams. I don't know if it's the way it is or not, but there's something in us which makes us be who we are. And it's not my body, it's not my genetics, it is my mind. It is my mind, that mind. I believe that it was created 6,000 years ago. My mind and your mind was created 6,000 years ago. Not now. Not when you're born. You receive the body and grab it, and Yahweh grabbed that mind and placed it in that body. This is the secret of resurrection, or else there wouldn't be resurrection. There wouldn't be resurrection, because if the mind, our spirit is by random, by chance, like when two things got joined and by chance that has spirit, how do you resurrect a person? You have to grab that spirit and keep it. It could work that way, keep it, but it was not a spirit created by God. It is the chance of randomness that you came from there, but Yahweh could not even have seen who you would be. He could not have seen you, because it would be a product of chance. Now, if it's the way I tell you, then there is an order. He's a real creator, because a human being cannot exist if he has not created a soul. The resurrection will be easy if you understand what I've just said. They just have to give you the access to the box of where those souls are that had an experience in that body, and to form a body for them, and to once again place that soul in that body. It's very easy. You don't need any particle of their existence in this hardware. It's like a program. The program, you may have a computer and build it, but the one who places the program is a different company or the different division of the company. And when he wants to get that program from there, he can take it out and be able to resurrect that program on a different computer a lot better, a lot faster, or a lot slower. But you have the copy. We are a computer. This is a hardware. It has a useful life. But my soul is eternal. God created it. It cannot die. Just like that, it cannot die, because it's got the same particle of God. That's why we're God. If you understand that, you understand how we procreate. And why is it that God obligates us to procreate? Why? Because he has to place the souls, which he already created, which are something else, other than our body, something different. You know how in Germanic medicine you have mind, brain, organ. Ask Dr. Herman what the mind is, and who's already dead. He's not going to define it. It's our spirit. It's something that he doesn't comprehend, but that's the mind. It was not created by mom and dad. It was created by God. If you understand that, you start to understand what predestination really is. So then all the aborted babies, they never existed. They just never existed. They never existed. In fact, babies who died when they were born also never existed. They also never existed. And I would even dare to say, but I do not know, that there's babies that have died at 6, 7 months that have never existed nor even had a soul, because he had the hardware, but they died without a soul. You can say, no, but he had a mind. The Creator will determine that. It's difficult for me to believe that God made a baby be born, give him 6 months of experience, which is nothing, to then later resurrect him. Why didn't you allow me to have the least of experiences? Do you understand what I'm saying? So then, I don't know in what moment did Yahweh deposits what he created. It's already created, just like that, 6,000 years ago. So then we cannot generate something, souls. What we generate are bodies. And Yahweh places the soul. That's the way I see it, and that's the way I believe it is. Resurrection is very easy. I can grab the souls that have a number. I said, who does the soul belong to? Oh, to some guy called Napoleon Bonaparte. They're like, oh, this is number 2,244,000. I grab this guy, I grab a body that, give or take, is Napoleon Bonaparte. Maybe have more information. I place that body in that body. That's it. That's it. It's easy as that. Resurrection. That is resurrection. There's no other way of understanding things. Very well. So then, I'm in point number 4. The sovereignty of Yahweh in the predestination of roles. All of us are predestined to do something, or to do nothing. It was just another feeling, but it's our experience. So then, it is not us who predestine who will be, but rather the one who created us with that spirit. Part number 5. The sovereignty of Yahweh in the choosing of the roles. We don't choose anything. It would seem that we choose. It would seem that we chose to be something. Some want to be presidents, they get to be presidents, or they get to be whatever. But actually, it's not a desire of the person, but rather a predestination thereof. That is what I absolutely believe in. And I'm talking about the roles, the important roles, not just any. Muhammad could not have been anything else other than Muhammad. Ellen G. White could not have been anything else other than Ellen G. White. That's why I don't even condemn her, that witch, because that's what she had to be. It may seem funny, but that's what she had to be. That was the role that he said. Yahweh said, this lady will play this role of a prophetess for this church. I'll even give her visions. And yes, because in order for it to be believable, she had to have visions. It's part of this theatrical. I can call her a false prophetess, and yes, her message is false, but a prophetess, because maybe it's true, because many prophesize, but her message falls like many prophets from the Bible. If you understand what I'm saying. Point number 6. Human beings are not sovereign in the calling or the choosing of the roles. We cannot influence in anything. The only sovereign is Yahweh, when He made us be born where we were born and what role He gave us. If we try to do something different, we cannot, and nor do we know, because we're directed, we're guided to play certain roles. 7. Sovereignty of Yahweh in the formation, which is the creation, form, culture, language, intelligence, etc. of certain human beings. Exactly. There were certain key human beings in all of our history that had to have certain characteristics, to be born in certain places in the adequate time to do a certain thing, and that is our history. That is our history. The inventors, those who made history, all that was predetermined by Yahweh. Complete sovereignty of His. 8. The sovereignty of Yahweh in calling for whatever He needs at a determined time. Yahweh calls human beings, and He makes them do whatever He wants. Whatever He wants, the unthinkable for human beings, what they would never have done under any circumstances, when Yahweh needs for you to do something, and I'm not referring to you, but rather it could be you, it could be whomever, Yahweh goes and makes you do it. And those are the weapons of evil, and the weapons of good too. But the weapons of evil are absolutely directed, designed, and placed into execution by Yahweh completely. And Yahweh tells one of his angels, which we've read many times already in this story, that he tells them, through deceit shall thou defeat them. So then all of the defeats and victories about lies, and we still protest about, have only one author. One sole author, which is Yahweh. But it's part of his creation. That's why I don't criticize him. But at this point in time, I'm not criticizing him. It's part of his creation. That's how he designed them, designed it to be. Point 9. The sovereignty of Yahweh in choosing from amongst the called. Exactly, calls a whole bunch of people. But from amongst the people, he's going to choose this, this, and that. And the rest were just called, but then they lose interest later. It's very clear. Point number 10. There is no personal decision not to the calling or the choosing of Yahweh. The grace or disgrace is irresistible. It cannot be rejected. We cannot go against the plan. I always asked myself, and maybe I still ask myself, wait, I don't have anything else to think about, why didn't I do something else? Because with what I know how to do, if I could go back in time, when I got to the U.S. in 1993, when I got to the U.S., I got married in 91, got here at 93. Now looking back with the experience that I have of having lived more time here than in Argentina, if I had dedicated myself to certain businesses, right now I would be almost a billionaire, because I know where I would have invested my time. Not in painting, not in stupid shit, in certain things that now that I see them, and I said, why didn't I dedicate myself to do that? One of the things would be real estate, because I'm a very good salesman. I mean, if I sell you a message that's so difficult to understand as this, just imagine if I'm not gonna sell you a property. If I would have done real estate, the business was so huge here in the U.S. that those who did that are millionaires right now, just like that, millionaires. Right now it's not such a good business, doesn't mean that it won't be in the future. But incredible, that would be one in other businesses that I could have dedicated myself, always legally, obviously, that I would have been absolutely a millionaire. Up until today, I remember when Bitcoin came out, which was worth $1. Even I thought, should I buy a couple? With just having invested $1,000 right now, I would have more than $100 million or 200 or 300. I could have invested, of course. Who knew the future that Bitcoin was gonna fuck off and that I hated either way? But when they came out, I could have bought it for $1. Look at how much it's worth. Or a little more. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. But what I can tell you is that no matter what I would have decided to choose, Yahweh would not have allowed me to do anything else. If I would have done real estate, he would have closed all my opportunities and given me the worst businesses, so that I wouldn't do it. That's how he does. Just ask Jonah. So no matter what I would have done or decided to do, and having all the capability to do so, he'll say, no, you won't do it. You won't do it. I'm going to make it all so that everything comes out wrong. Just ask Pharaoh. Just ask anyone. Judas was not going to hand over his master. He loved him, and I think he was the best disciple. He had to do it. So it's not what you want to do, but rather what if he determined a special plan for your life, you will do. But not everyone does that. But I'm talking about those that have special roles. I'm not speaking about what I'm speaking about, and I didn't start to think 15 years ago just because I wanted to do. It's because Yahweh had decided it so. And my message also, that whole fluctuation of being extremely Adventist, to leave Adventism, to believe in the Torah, to leave the Torah, to insult Paul, to accept Paul, All that insanity is part of the path that Yahweh made us take. And every one of you listening to me, it is because Yahweh called you, and because there is a connection with my message way past of what you believe, or way past your desire. It's not your desire to be here. If your desire is to be here and you don't belong here, you will leave. You will leave. Those are those that are called but not chosen. They were called even by your own interest. But it doesn't mean that you'll get to the end. Those who get to the end, it is because from the very beginning, they were those who were going to be. That's the way it is. That's how is everyone that is with predestination. And I'll close predestination with this. Yahweh created a world so that everyone, all the human beings that are born and that have a soul created by Him, are saved. They have different experiences, good ones, bad ones, kind of worse, terrible ones, brutal ones, or that you had a good time. All that was created by Yahweh from the very beginning. And all of those experiences someday will obtain eternal life, because we already have the eternal life. Our hardware may fail. When they asked about death, or about this same girl that I talked to you about that married 7 brethren. And he also says, look, it moves on, the text does, and he says, notice that God is not a God of the dead, it is a God of the living, because for Him they all live. So then, those that are dead, are they living? Yes, because they were always living. Because they are, that mind is kept in a place. And for God, they are alive. It's as if you were to say, I have a program. The program is not running, but the program exists. And if it exists, it's because we could say that it has life. Now that it's in a hard disk, doesn't matter. It only takes for me to place it in a computer so that you see it alive. But the program is alive because it exists. So then the dead exist. They all do. And for God they are alive, but they don't have a body. So then the mind is alive, but it is not conscious. It is not alive until they are called and a body is given them. That's why I tell you, it is very important to understand in the way that I tell you. You can understand whatever you want. I tell you what I understand. What I understand is that we do not create souls. We just create bodies. Nothing else. The souls are created already. So then, with what I said last Shabbat, that during the millennium there won't be a reproduction. There won't be reproduction. We're going to redeem, raise, resurrect every soul that's already been created and has lived at some point in time in history, but until all the souls that are existing are not together living and in certain harmony, a reproduction cannot exist. Once they all exist, then it is when we'll decide whether it's necessary, whether it's prudent for reproduction to exist. And I agree for reproduction to exist, but maybe the Creator says, maybe it's not convenient, or you're going to have this type of problems, or you're going to have to place them in a world where they have an experience first in order to get them out of there later and to once again place them. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to tell you, but for now, there won't be any reproduction. So then that whole idea, because it's beautiful to be mom and dad, it is rather our goal in life, because we've been created with that program. In fact, when we're not parents, there's something that has never been realized in us. Because we want to see something like unto us, that we beget, and that we develop love for them and they love for us. Aside from the need of keeping life up because we're dying, we want something that we have done at our image and likeness. Can that exist in the future? Yes, it can. But it will not work until all the human beings that have existed come back to life and they live in harmony. Then later we shall see if it is implemented again and with what reason is reproduction implemented. Well, that is predestination, and I've already summed up predestination. All predestined to live different experiences. When the seventh millennium arrives, the Messiah, which is the new government of the earth, will call all to life, little by little, because else it would be impossible to make them all understand at the same time. So then there is a time, and it goes way past the seventh millennium, even way past, because I don't even believe that 1,000 years are enough so that the whole world understands the truth about all the human beings created, and it goes way past. That's why Revelation calls after the 2,000 years the resurrected. Possibly it takes many thousands of years. Look at what I'm saying, thousands of years. It's a time that it's good that it's slow, because it's part of life. It's good that it's slow, because everything has a meaning, a living, an experience. It's beautiful that it's slow. Total, if those who are dead, they're in a box, they don't know nothing about time, but once they have to come, they have to assimilate everything with time. And that those that are in charge of making them understand of these people that they're beings, that they're gods, that they have life, that actually their hardware has been taken away and it failed. But they, the mind, the soul is divine. And once it's divine, it is immortal, not mortal. Once they are made to understand these things, it'll take time. That's why I'm telling you, maybe it'll take many thousands of years. I don't know. But it'll be a fantastic task, which is actually what we're called to do. So then predestination is marvelous. Marvelous. Because this creation is marvelous. Someday we'll understand it in its wholeness and totality, that it was actually a good system. That about pain, it was a good system. Once we are past this stage, as long as we're in this stage, we think that it's all dog shit, and that's the way it is. That's the way it is. Very well. I've already answered that about predestination. Question number 2. I think I've already talked many times about this, and this is a subject very extensive. I don't want to make it extensive. It's just a chat. Everyone will have their different opinions, and that's okay that you have your opinion. It doesn't mean that it's the truth. It also doesn't mean that what I'm gonna, my opinion's the total truth. It's my way of seeing things. Question number 2, virginity. It's number 2, but there are many questions about this. I'm going to read first all the questions about this, and then afterwards, how much is the virginity worth between men and women? Is a couple compatible of a virgin and one that's not? Can I do anything to go back to being a virgin? In an oral relation or non-conventional, are you still a virgin? Well, I don't know if we've talked about this, but I've mentioned something. I'm going to highlight them. How much is the virginity of men and women worth? This question is so complex that we'd have to first define what it is to be a virgin. Because I'm not going to define how much it's worth if I don't know what it is to be a virgin. The word virgin means something which has not been used, touched, or contaminated. Sexually speaking, the word virgin, there is a wide variety of opinions. It's not something mathematically nor physically exact at all. It is the contrary to that, according to what religion you ask, or the people that you ask, or the culture that you ask, they'll give you a different answer. Medically and clinically speaking, they're going to tell you that to be a virgin, it's a person that has not had coitus. The word sexual relationship and coitus are different things. Sexual relation involves so many things. Could be caresses up until other types of activities. Coitus, the word coitus means exclusively penetration. Penetration with the genitals. So then, clinically and medically speaking, they say a person's virgin who has not had the experience of a sexual coitus. Now, medically speaking, if they had a coitus, an anal coitus, technically speaking, they're virgin. They're a virgin. Medically speaking, they're virgin. Because for the medicine, virginity involves the genitalia. And the anus is not a sexual organ. So then, as long as the sexual reproductive organ is not touched or penetrated, they're a virgin. But they also tell you it's impossible for medicine to demonstrate or prove whether a girl's a virgin or not, because there are three types of hymen. The hymen is a membrane, which is in the feminine sexual organ at the entrance, or close to the entrance of the vagina, and it's a membrane which medicine says it could have a thick one that bleeds a lot when it's broken, or very fine and elastic that never breaks, and you can also be born naturally without any membrane, and that it disappears once you're a baby. So then there is no medical exam that they could say possibly or with precision, oh, this person's a virgin. No, there isn't. Because many mothers take their daughters to see. It's insanity. This whole subject is an stupid religious mind. So then medically speaking, now they're going to tell you there's no way of proving whether they're a virgin or not. Of course not. And even less male. Impossible, just impossible. Whether he's a virgin. So then, what is virginity? What is virginity? Well, medically speaking, is that, according to other religions, very, very strict. They say virginity is when there is a sexual relation that does not need that for there to be coitus or not. If they were both naked in bed touching each other, she's not a virgin, no longer. There are others that are more strict that I was searching out, that it says if the youth look at a porn video, they already see an explicit sexual relation, that they're no longer a virgin, because virginity resides in the innocence thereof of not knowing anything. Because Jesus said that whosoever coveted a woman in his heart, he's already fornicated with her in his heart. He is already guilty of fornication. So in the imagination, when they imagine a sexual act, they're no longer a virgin. An authentic virgin is that she hasn't the at least idea what sex is used for. That is extremely impossible to find unless she's a little tiny girl, very protected. But if she goes to school or online quickly, she enters into the category of non-virgin immediately, quickly, like that, because for those religions and for the cultures, the most ancient ones, a little girl or a young girl was a virgin according to her mind, and sexual innocent entirely. Absolute innocence, that she doesn't know anything about anything, can't even imagine what sex is. She doesn't know. So then under that absolute innocence, that's what virgin is considered. Anything else, then she's no longer a virgin. In other churches, more open ones, they say, no, you're a virgin as long as you don't have relations with a man. What happens if she has relations with two women? Two women. Oral sex between two girls. That is completely, she's still a virgin. What if there is penetration with some sort of a sexual toy? Even for science, she's still a virgin, believe it or not. Because science says it is when actually the male organ enters into the feminine organ of reproduction. So what does it mean to be a virgin? I'm sick and tired with that word virgin. What does it mean to be a virgin? What is the ideal of being a virgin? The Virgin Mary, which didn't know anything about anything. The Holy Spirit appeared unto her and he said, you will be left pregnant. She didn't even know how. No, you knew how. What happened? That is the maximum virginity. The other maximum virginity is Eve. Adam and Eve is the pattern of virginity because they were both naked and they didn't know they were naked because they were naked until they ate of the fruit, which the fruit is the knowledge, the knowing, wisdom. When they ate of the fruit, what happened? Their eyes were opened. What was the first thing they noticed? That they were naked. But were they naked before? Of course they were. But authentic virginity is that even though they see you naked, there is no type of... What's the word? I'm looking for the word. There is no type of sexual curiosity, nothing, not even of conscience that you're naked. That is the most pure virginity that exists. So then in that aspect, Adam and Eve were the only virgin ones that existed. As soon as they saw each other naked, there were no virgins according to many churches. So then, once in your mind, because I'm not going to define to you what virginity is. For me, virginity does not exist. Just like that, it doesn't exist, period. That's it, it's over. It's easier to define it that way. Because virginity, you define it however you want. If it is when there's a sexual relation, normal one. If it is when, notice I've had friends that would tell me, we want to get virgins to matrimony, but they had oral sex all the time. Oral ones. And they would get to orgasm. But they would tell me, we're virgin, she's still a virgin. Tell the truth. If they want to believe it, let them believe it. But that is not the concept of virginity. But that is the concept of virginity. A girl, which she satisfies herself without using other words, because there are many boys, but I have to use it either way, because if she self-satisfies, do you know how much medicine says that the kids start to self-satisfy at what age, and it's normal? At what age they can start? It's not that they all start, but they can start at 2 years old. At 2 years old. They can start to have even orgasms. But what does an ultra-religious person think if they're going to marry a girl? That he could ask, have you had a boyfriend? No. No boyfriend? Any sexual relation? No, I haven't. But I masturbate 3 times a day. What is the boy going to think? How is he going to look at her like a virgin? No, he's not going to look at her like a virgin. That is the mind of a religious person. Won't look at her like a virgin, because virgin for a religious person is something immaculate, without using the word wrong. Perfect, that the mind of that girl has never thought about sex. Has never imagined, never touched herself, nothing. As if something for many years they used the chastity belts. I mean, it's just that human animals, I mean, all designed by Yahweh, would make the girls wear a chastity belt that the father had, a lock, or just look it up what a chastity belt is. It's like an iron net with a lock, and they would close it, and it just had some holes to be able to urinate, and that's it, it's over. It could not have access to that part. Imagine the hygiene and the medical problems with that. But that's how these animals were, because they valued virginity so much that if they lost it, it wasn't worth anything. So then, for what the past is, virginity was everything. So then, when a woman would lose it, not precisely in good terms as getting married, but before she would lose value. She would lose value at the eyes of anyone. And she would pass on from being a virgin to being a whore. There's no midterm in the mind of humans. Either you're a virgin or you're a whore. There's no, she's give or take what? Kind of a whore. No, not a virgin. So what is she? A whore. There's no turn of the page. I know that maybe you don't look at it that way, and that's fine that you don't look at it that way. I'm telling you how humans have always seen it, and still see it up until today. Unless we take out the idea of virginity, because more than anything it's oriented towards women, and men not. Men is like it's as if he was always a virgin, the guy. Man doesn't happen. The problem is with women. The man doesn't lose value. He doesn't lose value for being a virgin or not. He almost loses value if he is a virgin, because he's an idiot. But the one that has not have a debut has not much value. But he's more of a macho if he has more experience. Now, women is worth it, and then she's worthless. And you say, why? Well, thanks to the curses. So then, under your question, is the virginity of men and women worth it? My answer is nothing. Nothing. It's worthless. It's worthless. A virgin woman is worthless. A non-virgin, I'm referring to virginity, not the woman. It's not that they have value at all. No value whatsoever. And we should all think that way. Not to give it a value just because she's a virgin, because as soon as she loses that, she loses her value. You cannot give it any value, zero value. If you give it at least a minimum amount of value, when she's no longer a virgin, she's not even worth that minimum. And if she gives lots of value, just imagine, she loses complete value. The only way of going from virgin to non-virgin for them to be the same virgin is that virginity is not worth anything. Zero. If humans had that in their mind, they would have already lost that about being virgin to going a whore. There's no, that is part of the design of Yahweh's. He made us ultra-religious and ultra-machistas. And it is part of the dominion and part of what is being lost little by little. Before, a man of good would not want to marry a non-virgin. He was going to ask, how many boyfriends have you had? Or if they were famous, there was no need to speak with a girl. Amongst men, some that has conquered or has had a friend that has conquered some girl, they just the girl had to just pass by and say, that one has lain with that one. In our mind, we would say, whore, whore, whore. Just like that directly. It would only take for one to tell us whether it's a lie or truth that he laid with her, she was, or her value was into dog shit. Complete of a value of saying, oh, I'm looking for virgins, and they say, oh, she's no longer a virgin, oh, she's already now a whore. That's the way it is. That was back in my time, just imagine in most ancient times. So then, in fact, I watched the movie, and there are many in this case, that women that have been violated, nobody wanted them. Even A woman had been violated and she was married, and the husband never even wanted her again. They separated entirely because the husband could not stand that his wife had been violated. It is so great the price that we as human beings have given sex, as if it was the most sublime thing that exists, the most valued thing that there is. That when a woman loses, the only value she has is her virginity. Is that the religions impose that? You've seen how a God, you could not offer them whomever. What could you offer the gods? Virgins. Virgins. Who invented that? Yahweh. It is clear. Who invented that? Yahweh. It is clear. And if a God does not accept a whore, he only accepts a virgin, and we start to say, yes, obvious, virgins. What do they promise the Arabs if they blow themselves up and they go to heaven? 7 whores or 7 virgins? 7 virgins. Because the whores are of no value. In fact, it's so much that men, sometimes when men, and I'm not referring to you, I'm referring to typical men, the whores, they mistreat them. Why? Because they take all the value out of them. They take out entirely their value. That is why the mistreatment of women that dedicate themselves to prostitution, there's mistreatment because men, they see her as an actual garbage. It's part of the same thing. And they hit them, strike them, mistreat them, because the more of a whore she is, the man looks at her with even less value. But if they say a fine lady, and it's someone's lady, or she's a virgin, they're treated with respect. That's the way it is. And why? Thanks to the curses and thanks to the religions. In Israel, they'd go to a war and they could kill them all. And the virgins, they could bring them back. Where could you even fathom? I mean, it's terrible, the information that God made the people be subject to. The priests could not marry any non-virgin. She had to be a virgin. So then they started to put that in our minds. The religions did, to completely demean the women as if sex had changed something of value in the woman. So the women up until today, internally, it must be an internal information. When they lose virginity, and if they're religious, they don't feel good. They feel sinful, whores, they feel whatever, that they've already lost their value. And men, it doesn't happen to them, but they do look at women that have passed through many women as some whores that have no value. That has to change. So then, under the question, how much is the virginity of men and women worth? Nothing. It's worthless. And you can ask me, is that same thing to marry a virgin girl to an actual whore? I mean, you don't have to marry with a girl that whether she's a virgin or she has lots of sexual experience. Love, it goes a different route. You marry a person because you like the person, not because of the condition that the person has. But of course, if you have the information that you cannot fall in love or that you can like that type of person that has lots of sexual experience, then it won't allow you to marry that person because of that belief is something that you live and die for. Will not allow you to enjoy a life because you're going to have always present in your mind, I married a whore. You won't be able to take that out of your mind unless you change the belief. You won't be able to take it out of your mind. And in many matrimonies, the years pass, and men which found out that their wives had been girlfriends of someone or some sort of other type of man before them, or more than one. Many men can't surpass that, and they continue to guilt upon the wives. And when you least expect, they said, "You're a whore. I don't know why I married. I should have married a virgin." How I would have desired to have married a virgin. and they can't surpass it, at least because of their beliefs. What do they have to do, if it's your case, to change the belief? How much is virginity worth? Zero. Zero. Women have the rights to sexual experience. Yes, of course, just as much as men. Doesn't make her less. Even if it hurts to your soul, even if your beliefs make you feel that women have no rights, or that a woman, in order to be good, she has to close her legs. That's a lie. That's a lie. And until you don't change that, in your mind, you won't be able to understand. Because it's all deceit of Yahweh's. Absolutely a deceit of Yahweh's. Based on what the belief is. Women don't have, there's no reason for them to be a virgin, and men either. Women are not worth more if they have more sexual experience or zero sexual experience. They're worth the same. In fact, if she has lots of sexual experience, she is worth more, in the sense that she knows what she likes. Believe it or not, even if it seems contrary, even if it's contrary to your nature, it's not contrary to your nature, but contrary to your beliefs. And your beliefs have been founded by your parents, and your beliefs were founded by the religions and by the culture of looking at the horse as evil and women afterwards, those are good, that are virgin. And it's so much that even when you marry a virgin, when the man has a relationship with her and de-virginizes her, he sees her as a whore already, no matter if it was just him. It's as simple as that. She's no longer a virgin. No matter if he was the one. No, she's not a virgin anymore. She's not a virgin, and now it goes into the same terrain as the others. That's the way it is in the human psychology. It's not that, oh, this one, I was the one de-virginized, and so this one, no, she lost the condition of virgin. So then if he were to give value to the virgin, he's no longer with a virgin. You understand what I'm saying? What the psychology of man is, and of women. Women also, if she has guilt of in that aspect, the religious one, they try sex as the quickest thing as possible, because it's dirty, because it denigrates them, because every time they have sex, it is something which takes her value down. That's the way it is. So then, what is the solution of all this? Well, it is lots of education and a change in the mind. If you give some value to the virgins, then you have the same problem that humanity has suffered. How do you change that? By not giving any value whatsoever to it, zero value. So then under your answer, how much is it worth? Zero. Zero. Just like that. Zero. It's worth less. Zero. Zero. And you may believe whatever you want. I could care less. But that is one of the greatest problems with humanity. Women, it took them a lot to surpass this point. Before, a woman which was not a virgin, it was almost determined to not get married, because the one that would take her as a wife, everyone would laugh at him and say, this guy's an idiot, he married that whore. Wow. I mean, so then it wasn't worth anything what women were. You could have the best woman in the world and have taken her out of a place of prostitution. Could have gotten her out of there. And if your mind says no, because no good woman would dedicate herself to that, then you're wrong. Because us men prostitute ourselves on a permanent basis, already to grab a hammer, to use my muscles and to spend my muscles to get paid by the hour. It's no difference than using your vagina or something else. If you don't end up thinking about it that way, then you'll always be trapped in that paradigm. Trapped in the moment in which I rent a muscle of mine to earn money, there's no difference, there's no honor in using another muscle. Just like that, there's no honor. I know that you're not going to understand it, and that's fine for you to not understand it. I just give you the information. Every time that I would be contracted to work with my body, I am as much of a prostitute as anyone that undresses themselves to have sex by money. I wouldn't have sex for money, but I would place all my muscles, which were always left sore. I would lose a lot more of my energy, my will, and my time. I didn't want to be there, and I used it for another, and the other would pay me for my effort. There is no difference between a woman opening her legs and that she is paid for that effort. There's no difference, even if it's even more to be a woman, even better. Just like Moria Kazan said, says, baby, I'm a worker. I made my money by opening my legs. Moria Kazan was an Argentinian vedette, in case you don't know who Moria Kazan was. An Argentinian vedette, and it says, and with lots of honor, the prostitution. Some work with hands and I work with my ass. That's what she said, give or take. Of course, you see, some work with hands and with their effort, and I work with my ass, and that's it, it's over. And a lot better. And I enjoyed to talk because I can choose. No, of course, obviously. Stop to think about it, taking out all of the religion from on top of you. Women also are very reluctant to having a friend that you know that she's had many husbands or many boyfriends. We're always in that position. Men and women think exactly the same way. When a woman sees a woman that's a prostitute, says, "What a dog shit whore." Yeah, said, "I don't want to get with that whore. I don't want to be around her." Obviously, completely. But I want. Yes, of course, men have the same problem. Women have the same problem. That's why she applies it to herself, and she has a complex of guilt that's terrible. Tremendous. But that guilt is reflected in others when she finds out that another is worse than her. It is the mirror. She says, "What a dog shit whore." She's telling herself that. She feels the same way. I want you to understand that clearly. That's why we're not going to come out of that paradigm until, as long as we don't come out of what it is, what a virgin and a whore is. We have to change. You have to learn to grow, or else you won't understand it, mind. You won't understand it. You'll be in that paradigm, both men and women, as clearly Leslie told me. Completely true. I had not touched on that subject. Not just men look at those women as whores, but the women themselves. You have to come out of that. You have to come out now, if you wanted to, or else you won't be able to work with humanity, seeing them as whores or virgins. Not the value. If you give value to that, you can't be a judge. So then, we have prostituted ourselves because for money, a man and woman, they work. Now, what type of work do you do? It's not that one is better than the other, mind you. It's not that one's better than the other. Because if a woman, like I've already told you, a woman has to feed her children, and she has to be 8-10 hours working outside for another person and to earn the minimum wage and leave her children abandoned at home. For that one woman, it would have been better to have looked a couple of clients for a little bit a day. She earns more money, and she can be with her children. Which of the two is a better mother? By far, the one that you consider to be a whore. It is a better profession than the other one. To top it off, she gives a pleasurable service. She has to look for good clients, because within the problem that I tell you, the men are violent, because so you have to know there are bad jobs that enslave you. Am I teaching that it's the best job? No. I said it's a job just like any others. If you don't see it that way, it's because you still have that paradigm in your mind. And if you don't understand it, don't you worry about it. There are many things that you still don't understand, and someday you'll understand it. So then, how much is virginity worth? Nothing. Nothing. Virginity is worth nothing, both for men and women. Is a couple compatible with a virgin as a non-virgin? Absolutely compatible. It's just that the one that is not a virgin, or the one that is a virgin, will bring the other by saying, I was this, you are this and that. Are they compatible? Yes. But it's preferable that they both have had their experiences. I'll tell it to you like that, simple as that, just as simple as that. I'll say it like that. So then, is it ideal that in a couple they get to be virgins? Last Shabbat I told you clearly that the couples are temporary, and in this generation. So then virginity for matrimony absolutely has nothing to do, because matrimony will disappear. That about keeping yourself virgin for my husband, my wife, for matrimony. The the sacredness of matrimony, it's all lies and religion, just like that, all lies and religion. Matrimony no longer exists. Very few time is left. Once this time of creation is completed, the entity called matrimony will no longer exist. The couples that get along very well, they can live or be together all of their existence, or however long they want, but it is not matrimony. So then that about virginity, the only advantage, the greater advantage about virginity, you know what it is? It's the only one there is, mind you. There's no other. The only one there is. It is not being left pregnant. If man takes care of himself but has no relations, the best of all of the key ideas is not having left any girl pregnant. That would be the primordial. But as soon as he leaves her pregnant, there will be resistance. Women also. So then, if you want to look some value, that's what it is. That's what it is. Not to be left pregnant. Very well. Other question says, can I do anything to go back to being a virgin again? No, of course, because for me, we're never virgins. Not even when we're born. Adam and Eve were a virgin. The rest were not virgins at all. That's the way I see it. That's the way I see it. Did you know that? I'm not going to give you now exactly how the theory is, but Freud talks about how actually we're not even virgins in the sense that we have a mentality that's completely sexual. There's different stages. You've got the first stage. Well, actually, no, I can't remember that. No, it has 3 stages. It has, I think it's the stage, the oral, anal, and genital. I think they're in that order. That the oral one is when the child starts to suck on the mother's tits. And so what's experienced is the level that's almost sexually orgasmic through the mouth. Then later when the kid starts to modulate the anus to retain and to do what he has to do, that right there gives the child so much pleasure to shit, for example. Once he's conscious and he starts to be able to flex the muscle of the anus, it gives him so much pleasure that Freud says that it's at an orgasmic level, and the child loves to shit. Just like you, I'm sure you love. It is an enormous pleasure when you want to go. So then the first discovering of a child, it is the anal stage, is what gives him the most pleasure. It resides in his anus. It's a sexual stage. Then you have the genital stage. He discovers the genitals afterwards, both men and women. They discover it later, and he implements both 3 things, which is the oral, the anal, and the genitalia. That if it's the correct order, I got a number 10, or I'll look at what Freud says of what stages are, of what sexuality is. So then it's all sexuality. Why are you coming to tell me? Oh, because there's virgins, because there's a hymen, because he didn't touch her, because you just masturbated or didn't masturbate, you inserted something or didn't masturbate, just one finger less, one finger. It's all stupidity. It's all an experience. The sexual experience is marvelous. It is. Taking out the religiousness from your mind and that God wants you to be a virgin. No, God always wanted you to be what you consider to be the contrary. That's what how he made us all. That is the truth. Because he needed, I'm not going to use the word, because I don't believe in what it is to be a whore. It is misused as being a woman. Either you're a virgin and you're still not a woman, or you're a woman. Because a woman is not a virgin until she becomes a woman. She's a child. That's what I would call a virgin, a child. But when she's a woman, she's a woman. And God precisely wanted you to be a virgin, not to be a virgin. Wasn't going to achieve to populate the earth with virgins. He was going to populate it with women that are willing to be left pregnant. That is the way with which God populated the earth. And then later he created everything, virginity in the valley that is given to virginity, only with the motive of making them feel guilty, and for men to have a motive to blame them. In fact, because you have to look at how the curses work. One of the secrets to curse a woman and to tell her she's worthless, that she's a whore, it was to make her believe that virginity has some sort of value, and that as the more virgin a woman is, the more value she has. Part of the curse, I think, that if everyone would turn that around, women would look at each other absolutely different. They themselves and men towards women. But from the moment in which Yahweh, it must be the secret of certain curses. You know that it's programming, because if we knew how to touch on that part of programming and revert them, and the curse would start to be reverted. Because the value of a woman always religiously resides in virginity. Notice that Mary, they don't call her Mary, they call her the Virgin Mary. If she were not a virgin, no one would worship her, because from a virgin should be the whore Mary the whore. But man wants to see a virgin. They don't want to see anything else. They want to see a virgin that they can worship a virgin. But in the moment in which she loses her virginity, she's no longer a virgin. What happened with the Protestant Christians? They said she's not a virgin because she had more children, all the rest. She left, the image of the Virgin Mary fell to the floor. But who are the only ones that worship the Virgin Mary? Those that find her still a virgin. You understand what I'm saying? If you think that Virgin Mary is not a virgin, then you no longer worship her. No, do you have the image? No, she's just another one of the bunch. You will worship her if you find her a virgin. If not, she's no good. That's why the Protestants, the Christians, they could care less about the virgin at all. How she fell? By making her a non-virgin. But that indicates to you how our mentality is. That has to change. There's no value whatsoever in virginity. Period. Can I do anything to go back to being a virgin? No. It is like doing something to be a child again. No. Nor should you. In fact, you should feel proud, every woman, of the experience that she had to live. Just like that, the experience that she had to live. Not to feel guilty. The contrary, that would change many things. To feel proud. I had an experience here, and just like driving a car, I always drive the same car. Oh, but you would have liked to drive other cars. Well, I didn't have the opportunity. That's just an very stupid example, but it is the reality. Well, I don't want to advance more in this subject because we could go into dangerous territory, but that's the way it is. In an oral relation or non-conventional, are you still a virgin? In my point of view, that virginity is worthless. In the moment in which you have any notion of what's sexual, then there's an awakening. You're no longer a virgin. No matter if you touched yourself, you didn't, you were penetrated or not, you're no longer a virgin. And if you look at yourself that way, as if you're no longer a virgin, even if you didn't have any sexual relation, you're going to feel better with yourself. As long as you, and I'm talking to those that still believe to be virgins, well, as long as you think that you're a virgin, then you'll have the same problem. Virgin, no one. In the sexual awakening, you're no longer a virgin. You're no longer a virgin. You're no longer a virgin. Absolutely not. That's how the men and women have to see it. Already, in that I tell those religions are correct that say that they look at a porno video and they're no longer a virgin because they're no longer innocent. They already see the male genitalia and how a relationship is made, and there's no mysteries or surprises. They have not experienced it yet, but there's no surprises. So then, if we define virginity as a state of consciousness, non-physical, but of conscience, then you've lost your virginity a long time ago, and it's worthless except to know. When did Adam and Eve lose it? When they ate of the fruit. That's where they lost it. They noticed they were naked. They were ashamed, it says. They were ashamed. They were no longer virgins. Virgins means to be blind. Virgin is to be dumb, without wisdom. That is what it is to be a virgin. Virgin. And math is not to know shit, not to know how to do anything about anything. A virgin means that you don't know, you don't have a fucking idea where you live or how the world is. A virgin in science is that you don't know absolutely anything. And I don't want to be a virgin in anything. An oil virgin is that it doesn't go through any process. It is the first, yes, of course. Right, that is, doesn't go through any process. Exactly, is a virgin. So then I'll say it again. The last thing I want to be in this life is being virgin of anything. Virginity equals stupidity, innocence, which means ignorance. So then virgin equals ignorance. If you still value virginity, then start to give value to ignorance as well, because in every aspect compare virgin or non-virgin. If you're a virgin in Argentinian food, then you're an idiot. The most exquisite food that exists, until you debut that you know an Argentinian that makes you an authentic Argentinian food. What are they going to say? Wow, how delicious this is. You can be a virgin in Mexican food or all kinds of things. What I don't want is to be a virgin. I want to try it all. I want to try it all and know everything. In the moment of not being a virgin is not known, it's not knowing, is not having gone through the process. That is what it is to be a virgin. It has no value. It is the least thing that exists in existence is to be a virgin. Let's see if you keep that in mind, if you grasp it. Very well. Let's see where I was. Okay, I've already gone through this subject. Where was I? 5 and 6. Oh, yeah. I was looking for this one. Question number 3. I'll have to answer many of them about sexuality, because in the list there's a whole bunch. The people don't know what one asks or the other. Some will be repeated. Question number 3, homosexuality. They asked about a year ago. I want to tell you, they're not new. Is it possible to have true love between the same gender? Homosexuals, are they going to have to learn to look for the contrary opposite sex in the new world after a year of having it here? I'm going to answer it. This moment has arrived. Is it possible to have true love between the same gender? Well, the same thing as always. We have to define what love is. Because what is love? They're asking me if it's possible to have true love. And what is true love? Well, there's fake love. Let me ask you. We have to start to define, because it's very easy to ask, is true love available between the same gender? But we have to ask what love is first. If we don't define what love is, then what is love? I'll ask you, what is love? What is love? I asked Leslie today all of a sudden, Leslie, what is love? And she said, love is desire. That's what she said. I'll sum it up in a word. Desire is love is to desire to be with a person, to be or to have something, to desire something for your life. That's what love is, or at least part of love. So then, I love the definition that I found in the Royal Academy, which is what the Spanish Royal Academy. No, it had fallen already. The Spanish Royal Academy. The definition. I'll look it up for you. Just hold on a moment. Love. The Spanish Royal Academy. Out of all the ones that I read, this was the most appropriate. Same thing. Whatever you think love is, or whatever I think love is, it is our opinions. What is love? And aside from the fact that love is very wide, remember when I didn't want to read love because it comes from pain in the Spanish language. It means to muzzle, which is to muzzle something to kill it. We used to call it in Hebrew, which is a haba, a dog shit word in Hebrew, which doesn't indicate anything to me. That love, I don't use it anymore. That love is Rome backwards in Spanish. Romantic. In Rome, we would see it as the beast. So the love is the beast, as Rome. In that time, that we would see Rome as the beast. All stupid shit. Anyway, definition number one, which I loved. I'm not sure if it's the true one, but I loved it. Of the Spanish Royal Academy, it says the feeling, intense feeling of human beings which, starting off of their own insufficiency, that's the part that I love the most. Which, starting off from their own insufficiency, needs and looks for the union with another being. I loved it. Why? Because in us there is an insufficiency that if we were not insufficient, we would not need for anyone to fill what we lack. So then, notice how the Royal Academy describes it. It's a feeling because it's not an emotion. Love awakens emotions, but it's not an emotion in itself. It is a feeling because it is felt, but it is many emotions at the same time. It is a feeling that is intense of human beings, which, starting off from their own insufficiency, that's the part that I loved and I comprehended it, that starting off from their own need of something which they lack, an insufficiency, which they lack something, it's not enough with themselves, because if you were sufficient with yourself, you don't need another. So then there is an empty place that you have to fill. It's the desire that Leslie told me. Intense feeling that starting from their own insufficiency, they need and look for finding the union with another being. And if there was no insufficiency, you would not need and you would not look for the meeting another being. I'd read of the greatest philosophers about love, that love is the great, per se, the great weakness of human beings. Because love, when a human being falls in love with another, they subjugate themselves and they subjugate their life towards another being, something that should never happen in a human being according to the philosophers. So then love weakens and destroys human beings. Seeing it from that point of view, love makes for me to render myself to another human being and to subjugate myself to another being. And if it's reciprocal, the other being surrenders and subjugates to this one. It is a submission that is mutual. Well, it sounds very beautiful. but it's never equal on both sides. Generally, women subjugate themselves, they subjugate more, and men, they take control. So then it causes a union that is non-equal. Unequal. It's not a union of the supposed perfect thing that it should be, because if this person would resign and not accept what she likes, you see the definition of Paul. I mean, forget it. It's all bearing. The whole definition that he said about love, which I don't agree with the dog shit definition of Paul's. But love in general, it is when one surrenders oneself and your desires and your will to the service of another, and the other renders his will to the service of the other. It's just that it is not 100%. And always one takes control over the other. One could be the man over the woman. It's not what's common, but men over women. Women can do many things, but either way, that's why there's a curse. So then if you think about this coldly, why would I subjugate myself to another being? I'm weakening myself. I leave my desires, my passions. I'm no longer me, to become something that I am not, and in the service of another person. Love is a complete rendering towards another being. The more in love you are, the more you surrender at the other person's feet. I give myself up and I melt myself for you. I no longer exist, and all that exists is you. It sounds very beautiful, very romantic, but it's very destructive at the same time. And the philosophers will tell you, because you as a person, what you have built, you destroy it, you bring it down at the feet of another person, and at the same time you expect for the other person to also do it to you, for there to be a fusion of them in one. You understand what I'm saying? Which in the end of it all, it destroys human beings. That is what the philosophers say. I don't disagree way too much with them. I have my opinions, but at least I wanted to tell you what love is. I love what the Spanish Royal Academy said. It is an intense feeling. Don't eat the pumpkins, cat. An intense feeling of the human beings that, starting from their own insufficiency, they need and they look for the finding in the union with another being. Two, the feeling of another person that naturally attracts us and trying to get reciprocity. Oh, Matza, she has such love, but what? Because she needs me to feed her. When I no longer feed you, you no longer won't love me. The insufficiency, exactly. So then, the feeling towards another person that naturally attracts us and that trying to look for reciprocity and the desire and union completes us. It brings joy and it allows us to live, cohabitate, and procreate. Oh, what a beautiful cat. 3. The feeling of affection and inclination and rendering towards someone or something. 4. Tendency towards sexual relation. Okay, I mean, love is so wide. The word love is so wide. You get the love of a couple, towards parents, towards children, towards friends, towards animals, towards a soccer team. How many things is love? A whole bunch of things is love, but it's all an actual emotion towards something. That's why in the new kingdom, when we get to personal plenitude, we're going to read the definition of love of the Spanish Royal Academy and we'll say, oh, of course, that's why we were so inclined to look for a couple to complement us. But what happens if we're the complement of ourselves, which we don't need, or there's not that desire, like Leslie told me, of possessing another? Because love is terrible. It moves emotions, very great ones, and it also moves. It causes murder, hate, all kinds of infidelities, problems, all kinds of things. It's all about love. It's all about love. But once we don't have that insufficiency, or must it be that we should have it to be able to get into have relationships with one another? Tell the truth, I don't know about that part, but what I do know, and it is clear, is that there won't be a need of joining in matrimony. So then, having answered this question, which says, is true love possible? Exactly. Exactly. It's not that there's a need like the love of a couple, but it is a pleasure with people that, of course, exactly, and you're not just accepting it, exactly, and even more, thinking in a new earth. We're not talking about hermits in the new earth, but to live in a society. Correct. Exactly. We're going to have caring and love and a sensation of well-being towards another. Exactly. So then, before the question, homosexuality, is it possible to have true love between the same gender? I say absolutely. Because love has nothing to do with genders. It doesn't have anything to do with genders. In fact, I believe that our soul has no gender. Like I've told you, that the soul was created before. The soul has no gender. If they were to take my soul out, I'll give my own example. If I look ridiculous, that's fine. If they were to take my soul out and they were to place, and they were to cross me with Leslie, and if nobody gets upset, they cross me with Leslie. They say, God says, let's play. I'll take your soul out. I'll take Leslie's out, and I'll cross them. And I'm gonna think with the hardware of Leslie, with all of the brain that Leslie has, with the virtues and limitations that Leslie has, but with my mind. It's like kind of like what the Jews said. What would happen if I would place the brain of a lion in a mouse on a rat? If I were to place the soul of a lion into a rat and exchange it, the rat will feel like a huge giant rat in the body of the lion, or how is she going to feel? And that is what the Jews said. That is what they said. I'm not sure if it's true. This is just philosophy because you can't prove it. It says that the rat will act like the hardware that it has, like a lion. In other words, she will use that hardware that she has, and she'll act not like a rat but like a lion. And the spirit of the lion in the body of a rat, she'll act like a rat. You can't prove what I'm saying. It'll act like the hardware that they have. But you can't prove this because it's not that we have scientifically tested this. You can't prove this. But I believe that true love between the same gender completely, absolutely. In fact, sometimes it's even more. Not talking about just gays. Of course, between friends, Right, between friends, there's a lot more friendship between male friends and women with other women as friends, because I don't think that there's no friendship between men and women. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Because it always drives into sexual. So then a man to say, I have lots of friends, I mean, that's fine, lots of acquaintances. But actual friends, no. Because actual friends, they want to go out and eat with her, go to the movies, and have some activities to spend some time. And when you have a friend that you have that, it ends up in the bed. And you can't avoid it. So then the friendship between men and women does not exist, because between both of them there's an attraction. Now, the friendship between men is very strong, and love, for me, love is asexual, because we cannot relate love with sex. No, absolutely not. Love is, like I've told you, it's something which attracts you. How does the Spanish Royal Academy say? I like that. I mean, I can't learn it by memory, but I loved it. It is an intense feeling of humans that out of their own insufficiency they need, and they look for the finding of another human being. There has no gender. You can have a friend that you like to do everything with that friend except for sex, but you like to go out, you like to eat, you like to chat, watch movies with, sports. And so then, is that what love is? Well, then you have love as, well, that's my best friend, you would say. Exactly. And sometimes there's even a better friendship than with your husband or wife, or the one that you'll develop with a future husband or wife. So then, yes, absolutely, love has nothing to do with genders. Absolutely nothing to do with genders. It was said, who said this? That he loved more. Yeah, you have to see it. It had to have been David, right? That he loved more Jonathan than women, and he never had a love. What does he say exactly? He says something that never. What does David say about his very good friend and lover Jonathan? Lover, because they loved each other. Let's see, I can remember the text. Can you please post it? Exactly, but I want to read it. I want to read it. It is sweeter than women. It is sweeter than women, exactly. Let's see if you look it up. Where is it? Let's go. Well, we're very slow. Is everyone asleep? Did they give us a like? Here it is, 2 Samuel 96. No, wait.
Wow, esa es una. Y 2 Samuel 1:26 dice,
2 Samuel 1:26 says, I have anguish for you, my brother Jonathan, that you were very sweet to me. Your love was more marvelous than the love of women. There you have it very clearly. Yes, as to himself, because he liked them more. It says, more marvelous was your love than that of women. Is something against that? No, nothing. So then is love possible? Yes, absolutely. Love has no gender. Homosexuals are going to have to learn to look for contrary sex in the new world. No, absolutely. They're going to look for whatever they want. Maybe many heterosexuals will look for a different type of love, which is different. That's the way it is. They can't see it a different way. They can't see it in a different way. It's not a society that say women with men or else you're in sin. No. There's going to be many heterosexuals looking for the love that David experienced, for example. It's not that the homosexuals are going to have to learn, but maybe the heterosexuals are going to have to learn other things that they have never even imagined. That is what the open mind of a God creator is. Not closed religiously. The things have to be this way. No, they don't have to be that way at all.
Bien.
Very well.
Contestada esa pregunta,
Having
avanzamos.
answered that
Tengo otra
question,
pregunta,
we
pero
advance. I have other
la
questions.
voy a
Like
leer.
I've told you, I'll read them all.
Pregunta referente a la
Question
predestinación,
about
Shemah.
predestination. I've
Buenos
answered
días,
it already.
Cristian Silva,
Good
todo
day,
el
Christian
linaje
Silva,
LV.
and all of the
Esta es la
LVE lineage.
predestinación
This is the
porque yo
predestination
me
because
desespero cuando no escucho el mensaje,
when I
siento
don't listen
algo
to the
por
message, I
dentro
feel
que
something
me
inside
impulsa a oír.
that makes
Por
me
mi
listen.
trabajo no
Because of my
siempre
job,
lo
I can't
escucho en
always
vivo,
listen
pero
to it
guardo el
live,
mensaje para
but I
escucharlo después.
keep
Esto
the
es
message just to listen to them later.
Gracias por todo, Semper Fi.
Is
Esto
that
fue
predestination?
hace más de
Thanks
un
for
año atrás.
everything. Semper Fi.
No, eso no
This
tiene por qué
was
ser
more than a year ago.
predestinación.
That doesn't have to be
No lo sé.
predestination. I don't know.
La predestinación marca
But the predestination calls
que si vas a ser parte
that if you're going to
de
be
este
a
grupo
part of this
laverdadeterna,
group, The Eternal Truth,
yo no sé ni quién escribió esto.
I don't even know who wrote this.
Si vas a ser parte, vas a ser parte.
If you're going to be a part, then you're going to be
Si
a
no
part.
vas a ser parte, por más
If you're not
que
going to be a
quieras
part,
ser
even if
parte,
you want to be
no
a
lo vas
part,
a
you
lograr.
won't achieve it. So then,
Eso es justamente la predestinación.
that is
Así que
precisely
lo
what
que tú me cuentas
predestination
de
is.
tu
So then, what you
experiencia,
tell me
no
about
lo
your
sé.
experience, I don't
Pero
know.
si sigues hasta
But
hoy,
if you're still here
es
up
lo
until
que
today,
más
and it
te
is what you
gusta
most
oír de
like to
toda tu
hear out of
vida,
all your life,
y posiblemente
then
ser
possibly that's what it is,
parte
that you are
de la
a
predestinación
part of
que te
the
impulsó a
predestination that
entender
impulsed
esto.
you to understand this.
Yo quiero que entiendan
I want you
algo.
to understand
Claro,
something.
creo que
And of course, it's been 2 hours 36.
sería
It
una
would be
buena
a
hora
good time
para ir terminando.
to finish.
Así, el
That way,
Shabbat
next
arrancamos
Shabbat,
con
we'll
un
start
poco
off
de
with a little bit of
Proverbios, y
Proverbs,
sigo
and I'll
diciendo,
continue to read. I
tengo
have
preguntas.
pages, entire pages.
Quiero que entiendan
I want you to
algo
understand something
claramente de mis
clearly
labios y que
from my
no
lips,
deje dudas.
and
Si hay algo importante
not to leave
en tu
doubts.
vida
If there's
que has
something
hecho hasta
important in your
ahora,
life that you've done up until now,
es escuchar la verdad
it's to
eterna,
listen to the
nada
eternal
más.
truth, nothing else.
Es lo más
The
importante
most
que ha
important
pasado
thing that
por
has passed
tu
through
camino.
your life.
No es esto un
This is not a
complemento de los
compliment
sábados,
about the
esto no es
Shabbats, is not a
algo
compliment,
para
something to
divertirte
have
un rato y ayudarte a mejorar.
some
Si yo sé que esto es para ayudarte a
something to
mejorar, yo cierro todo
help you to get
Porque
better. I'll
la
close everything
misión
down because the mission
de la verdad
of the
eterna
eternal
no
truth
es
is not to
ayudarte a
help you
mejorar,
get better,
es
but it is to
preparar
prepare
a un gobierno.
a government.
Puedes mejorar mucho y
You
después te
can
vas, como
get better, then you leave
hicieron.
like many have
Qué bueno.
done. Good
Yo
thing.
no vine
I didn't
acá
come here
a hablarte
to
para que
speak
tú
to you for you to
mejores,
get better. No,
para que tú te
for you
entrenes y
to
seas parte
train
de
and to be a
algo.
part
Esto
of
no es para
something.
que mejores,
Why
es
better?
para ser
It is
parte
to be a part
de un
of an
organismo.
organism.
Ese
That
organismo
organism
se
is
llama,
called,
lo que la gente
what the
no
people don't
entiende, el
understand, the
Mesías.
Messiah.
Ese
That
organismo.
organism. So then,
Entonces, si hay algo
if there's something
en tu
important in
vida
your
que
life,
no importa la
it
edad
doesn't
que
matter whatever age you have,
es haber
it's
encontrado
having
la
found
verdad
the eternal
eterna.
truth.
Es
It is
absolutamente
absolutely
lo más
the most crucial
crucial
thing
en tu
in
vida.
your
No
life.
importa lo
No
que
matter what
estudies,
you say,
no importa lo que ames,
no matter what you love,
no importa a
no
quién
matter
ames,
whom you love,
porque aún
because even
tu relación
your relation
va a terminar.
will end.
Como hoy escuché,
Just like today, I
hoy
heard,
no,
no, not today.
esta semana viendo no
I
sé
was
qué,
watching something during the week.
cosa
I don't know
que
what we were
estábamos
watching with
mirando,
Leslie.
que dice,
That
toda
says all
relación de pareja termina en
couples'
tragedia.
relationships ends up as a
Es verdad.
tragedy, and it's true. Every single one.
No hay
There's
una
not
que no
one
haya
that has
terminado
not ended in a tragedy.
¿Por qué? Porque uno
Why?
de los
Because
dos
one
va a
of
morir.
the two will die.
Y es
It's a
tragedia.
tragedy,
O
right?
se mueren los
Either
dos,
they
o
all
se
die
mueren
together
uno.
or one
Pero la
dies
tragedia
first.
está
But the
ahí,
tragedy
porque
is
siempre
there
van a
because they
morir.
will die.
Entonces, no importa
So then,
cuánto se
no matter how
amaran,
much they loved
uno
each
se va
other,
a
one
morir.
will die.
Termina en
It
tragedia.
ends in
¿Qué dice?
tragedy.
Hasta que la muerte nos
What it
separe.
says, till death do us apart, till death do us
Y la
apart, and
muerte los separa. Entonces,
death
toda historia
does
de
them
amor
apart. So then
termina en
every
tragedia.
story of love ends up
Entonces,
in tragedy. So then, no matter
tu historia de
what
amor,
your
no
love
importa lo
story
que
is,
hayas
no
hecho
matter
en
what
la
you have
vida,
done in life,
no hay nada más
there's nothing more
importante
important
de lo que
of
es la
what
verdad eterna.
other than the eternal truth.
Porque
Because
si mis
if my
palabras
words in your
realmente
mind
son
are
verdad,
true,
este es el
this is the
Mesías que va a
Messiah
dirigir
that
por
will
la eternidad.
guide
Entonces, no
everything
importa lo
throughout
que hayas
eternity.
hecho, lo que
No
estés
matter what you have done,
estudiando,
what
lo
you're
que
studying,
lo que,
what,
ni siquiera lo que
not
tú
even
crees,
what you believe,
ni lo que
not even what you work.
lo más
The most important
en
thing
tu
in your
vida
life
es
is
absorber
to absorb
todo lo que
everything
puedas
that you can
de la
about the
verdad,
eternal truth.
porque esto
Because this is
el
the
destino
destiny
de tu
of your
vida
life
y del mundo.
and of the world.
Y si sos
And
parte
if you're a part
para esto,
of this,
toda otra
everything
cosa,
else,
actividad en tu
activity
vida
in your
pasa a un
life,
segundo
it,
plano.
it takes a second plane to it.
Si
If
esto es tu
this is
segundo
your
plano,
second plane,
entonces no sos
then you're
llamado
not
para-
called
para
for
esto,
this,
porque
because
el
this is the
destino
destiny thereof of the government of the earth, the Messiah. It is the destiny. There's no other greater destiny on earth. It doesn't exist. And you have to understand that very clearly. And also, I'm already tired. So then, Psalm 78, 1 through 2, hear, O my people, my law, and hearken your ears unto the words of my mouth. I shall open my mouth in Proverbs. I shall speak hidden things hidden from the times of old. And everything that I talk to you about, don't think that it is to give you my opinion. If you actually desire to be a part of the Messiah knows that sex, virginity, is all the contrary to what the religion has taught. And it's all the contrary to what has been imposed. It is not my mere opinion. If you enclose yourself in the popular belief and the value given to certain things and you don't change your mind, that you don't have the mind of the Messiah. You don't have it. If you believe that a couple is only worth of a man and woman, then you don't have the mind of the Messiah. You don't have it. This world has been an experience, but the world that comes is different. It is very different. It is new heavens, it is a new power, and new earth. This whole experience will be very different. So then, learn to listen, learn to understand, because out of this is what how the new government will be formed. We are those crazies, and we really are crazy. Do you know what, my friends? We are crazy because we think that there is an eternal justice that is called to rule the world. That is why we are crazy, yes. And if that's why we're crazy, and I am filled with pride of being crazy in that way, I feel ennobled with the craziness of believing how I believe, that a sepulcher is dug out already for our tyrants, that liberty and the reign of the people cometh, that a nation, no, that a great time will begin. If you didn't give a like to this video, give it a like, and you can also comment on it. If you are between the majority, or almost 90% of people that had a different vision of what sex is, virginity, and all the rest of it, it's time for you to change. I am not just wasting my time and wasting yours. If you want to change, you have to start to think like I just taught you. Virginity is worthless. Virginity is a state of consciousness. Virginity is equal to ignorance. We don't want to be virgins. We are not virgins, and we want to lose our virginity in every aspect. Because a person that is worth is a person that is not a virgin, a person with lots of experience, and that is wise. You would not want to be handled by a virgin pilot in an airplane and said, I've never flown a plane, but I'll fly for you. You would not like that. You would like for us to look for the best pilot with the greatest of experiences, and you will feel sure. Why don't you think that way in sex? No, because sex is different. No, that's your belief. That is your belief. The same thing is as to pilot a plane than to pilot a human body. The experience makes the difference. You can land very awfully or get to heaven, and to descend in an airport that's orgasmic, or you can crash. It's all in the experience. Suck at the liberty's breast. You will always carry her within the heart. They may corrupt you, you may forget, but she is always there. Yesterday I had a dream with the hungry, the crazies, those who left, those who are in prison. Today I awoke singing this song, which has been written some time ago. It is necessary to tell it one more time. There was something that I forgot. which I don't have written down because it's questions that I'm not going to write down the answers for. Part. Pay attention to this and think about this part of human beings, which it's so difficult for them to forgive, that they call treason in the couple. Also, it is because of giving so much value to sex. If we were to learn to be a lot more free in our mind, even the treasons, because they are treasons, you've signed a contract to not get with others. There's still per se a treason, although it's a nasty word. Even the slip-ups in the couples that there's been, they should be super forgivable. They should be very easy to forgive. But all the beliefs enter into play, the possession and everything else, and the people, they think that per se, they find it to be almost impossible to forgive. So then, when they're before an infidelity, a woman is marked for all the entire life. And if an infidelity of a woman, a man can't stand her anymore, and it's almost difficult to forgive her, and it's broken. Why is it broken? Due to the value we give to sex. If we were to give the less value, we would see everything a lot more forgivable per se, so as to not say something else. Forgivable, easy to forgive. But since we have so much value added to that, then it becomes the unforgivable. It happened to the disciples too, because when the Messiah tells them, no, tell the truth, not even due to adultery should there be divorce. For example, he told them. The disciples said, oh no, if it's so, then it's not good to marry. We're not going to be willing to forgive anything. If it is so, it's better not to get married. Tell the truth, if you think like that, and it's better, I don't want to say don't get married. Maybe it's better for you to look for another message for you, because this message is for Sophie. Can you raise her? Can you pick her up, Leslie? There it is. Or else I can't even finish. What was I saying? Oh, that this message is not for you. If you can't understand and change, this message is not for you, because this message is to free your mind. Like Morpheus said to what's his name? Neo. Yes, Morpheus told Neo, you have to free your mind. You have to free your mind. And I tell you, you have to free your mind. All the sexual things that they taught us to value, they are not that way. If you don't learn to free your mind, and remember the subject that I gave about sexuality some years ago. I don't know if it still exists somewhere online. You have to free your mind. If you don't free your mind, then you cannot be a part of a government that guides humanity. The last thing we want is to have a narrow mind. Just like the song. The destiny is written. The end is inevitable. Semper Fi. God, the true God, is Argentinian. Let's go the eternal truth. I don't care to fill you, not about the Bible or prophecy or anything. I'm interested in you liberating your mind. This subject is for you, to help you to liberate your mind, or else it makes no sense to continue in the eternal truth. The eternal truth is a group that is free, pro-liberty, not religious, in the sense that religions is how everybody looks at it. It is a religion because we love this, but not like a religion with its rites, with its dogmas, and all the rest. So then, we're going to study Proverbs and all the rest. I have lots of questions to answer. I want for you to ask me if you have any. Write to me, to my Facebook, and ask me, and I will answer them. Don't forget to comment this video. Hallelujah to every one of you. We'll meet again next Shabbat. Let's go, Volcom. We are going to play against the team of power on Monday at 12. And I hope we win. I hope we win and that we do well. That is what I hope for. We shall meet again. Semper Fi. Hallelujah to every one of you.